to come to you and give you some update in the world of HR and accounting. Woohoo! Everyone's
How exciting.
So exciting. Yeah. So look, thank you so much for everyone who tuned into our last webinar. We got some great feedback from it, and I know some of you found it helpful. So that's really nice when we do get that feedback, and it does encourage us, and we really like it when people ask us if we can do specific topics as well. So without further ado, the exciting topic today is, drum roll please.
Yeah.
Annualised salary. So such riveting stuff, isn't it? Okay, so this is really important. Boring but important. So I hope that most employers now know that you can't just set a salary and set and forget and work the arse out of people like they used to back in the old days. And they used to say, oh, we'll put them on, $40,000 and we can work them as many hours as they want. That is certainly used to be done in the past. I'm not quite sure how legal it was, but we know it was common practice. And I think we've all known for a while now we can't do that.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe even if it was common practice, it's not necessarily smart practice.
I would completely agree. And just because it happened to you early in your career does not mean that it has to happen to someone else. I had to do it. You should have to as well. It made me stronger. So those arguments just don't cut it. So we've all known that for a while. What has happened is it's gone, one step further as far as fair work is concerned. And this happened in February 2020, and we were expecting it to be quite a big issue to be going through last year. Funnily enough, it fell into the shadow. Don't know why.
A little event happened.
Yeah, a little event kind of distracted us coming on from the end of February into March, and it kind of got pushed by the side. But it is still something that when it was in place, it was the awards were changed, which gave some more parameters around salaries and how you need to write salaries and what needs to be included with a salary. So it is really, really important that, we will give you a bit of a rope. If you didn't get a chance to look at your salary contracts last year, completely understand. But now is the time that you need to dust those contracts out and just have a bit of a look to see what you've got written in them. So not all awards have been impacted. There is a selection of awards. Have we got them in here? No, I haven't got them in here. So it's not all awards. There is about 20 awards. The one that jumps to mind that is that has got quite restrictive clauses around it is the clerical award. And they're really making it super strict with regards to how you actually write in what a salary can be in your contract. This is for myself, and Deanne have had many conversations about this, and we are in agreement. You'll be pleased to know. Otherwise, it could have got very messy. We just can't understand why Fair Work have made some of the changes. Because as far as we're concerned, salary should be, you get paid a set amount, say at 75,000. Some weeks you work more, some weeks you work less. At the end of the day, it should all wash out in the wash. Yeah. You should still get paid more than what you do, and that's how we've always spoken about a salary should be. Overall, you have to be better off. Yeah. How under the clerical award, you can't average it out over a year. You've got to average it out over that pay period. Oh wow! So if you've got
when you say pay period, if you pay monthly, it'll be over that month. If you pay weekly, it's over that week. So,
yeah. So if you have got someone who's on a salary of 100,000, and they usually only work 38 to 42 hours or something like that, so well and truly covered, but there's a couple of months in the year that they going hammer and tong because it's tax time or just a really high demand and they have to do a lot of extra hours. If their earnings, what they earn every fortnight, doesn't meet the award requirement over that pay period, you could be underpaid.
Oh, wow.
Which is a bit frustrating. And I'm going to an extreme there when it's such a high salary with only a few weeks. But, we do have a lot of people that it's a seesaw.
Yeah.
Overall it's better, but some weeks it's more, some weeks it's less, and you're paying pretty close to the wind with the award. So you need to have a super good look at your salary, and you need to have a really good look at what your contract is actually saying in that situation.
All right, which people often don't. Business,
Yeah, no, they don't. And, they're not planning for it enough. So when you're looking at your salary calculations, you should be looking at the minimum hours, which is your 38, your overtime, and we've just put the 150 and the 200%, but it will depend upon what the award is. You're looking at your Saturday rate, your Sunday rate, your public holiday rate. A lot of people will include annual leave loading. They want to pay that out in the salary. And so what you need to do in a lot of these awards is you actually need to have that table that we've put in there, this table here, in the contract, so people can really clearly see what their salary is buying out.
So if you don't have that in your contract, effectively you're not legal.
It could be a breach, yeah.
Okay.
So it's something that you need to have in those letters of engagement. And it's been really interesting. We've had some businesses that have implemented it and they've said, look, this is just a requirement. We're just getting our documentation to meet the award requirements. And the staff members said, oh, but you're saying that I can do, 8 hours of overtime and I only ever usually do 3. And they're like, yeah, we know, we're not changing anything, but, just so you can see it is up to 8. And oh my goodness me, they've had meltdowns and I'm going to leave and this is your way to try and trick me. And it has caused a lot of suspicion and grief. And so your whole communication and how you actually implement this. I've actually had a staff member who has resigned because they've refused to sign a contract that has got outlining, even though the employer has black and blue said that they don't have any expectation that they would not increase, and we've put in the contract that they wouldn't increase the hours unless the staff member was happy. They've still.
So that's an interesting one. I mean, what is the sort of general rule there, Phoebe? So if you get asked to work a couple of hours overtime, do you have a right not to?
No, that is a really good question, actually. So you have, as an employer, you are able to ask people to work reasonable overtime. An employee has the right to refuse it if they have, reasons such as childcare or responsibilities that they can't do it. But if it's just, I don't want to because I want to get to the pub earlier, they probably can't. You need to remunerate that overtime component though. So you have to either pay them in their hourly rate or their salary with it. So that is what they're saying, is you have to have the conversation up front to say, well, what is going to be the potential overtime and that expectation to the staff member.
And so I guess the take home for me is also, have your contract sorted out before you employ people. Obviously, you can't do it with existing, but when you bring on new people, make sure that it's set up properly, and that's where you need to speak to HR Dynamics.
Yeah, but also for your current employees, you might need to do an update.
Yeah, you've got to update
and talk to them about it.
But ideally, if you'd had it correct from the get-go.
Oh, absolutely, and there would have been clarity with it. It is. And people's situations will change too. They will be in a situation where they might have needed more flexibility when their children were younger, but as they've got older, they may be able to work more overtime and it's reasonable. So it is probably something that you do need to kind of revisit. Remember, working more hours does not necessarily mean more productivity. And, there's numerous studies which support this. Look, it's easy to say that in some situations, if you've got a business that needs to be opened at a certain time and locked at a certain time, it's not about productivity, it's just about coverage of shift. And 100%, there's a lot of situations that is actually in play. But it is it's a big topic at the moment. It's something that I'm expecting to see a lot more cases about. And I do think that if you've got salary staff, you need to dust those and bring them out and have a bit of a look at it. Which is just what we've said. You need to look at the amount they would have received, no less. Over the 12 months it would have been. But as I said, there are certain awards such as the Curricle Award that don't give you that 12-month coverage. So have a look and see what does your award actually allow you to do.
Is that quite easy to find out, or when you look at the awards? Because from previous experience looking through them, it can be quite a lengthy process or a document to go through.
Yeah, look, that's a good question, actually. When you go into an award, just pretend this is the award you're in now. If you go into the Fair Work site, which I think is better at looking at your list of awards than the Ombudsman. They both have the same awards, but just the navigation I find a little bit easier under Fair Work. I think with both of them, even if you do go into the ombudsman. On the left-hand side down here, you will have a whole list of all the different clauses. So it will have coverage, wages, full-time, part-time leave, all of that type of thing. So you need to navigate down there, and what you will be wanting to look for is full-time. Have a look at in some awards, and some awards will have salary.
Okay, and I guess the other side of it,
that side
and have a look.
Clause,
yeah. But even once you click in there, sometimes it's a bit ambiguous the way, or it's hard to interpret what they've written down there. And I think that's where you guys can really help small businesses kind of get to grips with it. Because, let's face it, as a small business owner, you've got tons of things that you have to do. You've got your work that you've got to do, then you've got the financial aspect and this aspect and HR, etc. And it's always useful, well, not useful, it's almost imperative to get someone like yourselves in just to help them review it, to make sure you're doing the correct thing.
No, look, and I think as a small business owner, we're all guilty of this at some stage, in that, sometimes we're not clever with how we spend our time and our resources. And I had a classic situation with someone the other day who had spent all day trying to research for some information, and was getting herself so super confused by the end of it that she ended up ringing me. Now, I answered her question in 10 minutes. And she's like, oh my gosh, you've just clarified. And I hadn't worked with the client before. It was a referral. She'd just been given our number. And she's like, how much do you owe you? And I was, I'm paying it forward, it's 10 minutes, it's fine. But, even if it hadn't been 10 minutes, even if it had been an hour, and we'd charged them, $160 to provide that information, I do think that $160 could have been better spent knowing that they got the correct information than spending a whole, 8 hours
100%.
where they could have been marketing or working on the business.
That's exactly the way. We often say to our clients, look, 100% correct. If you spend 8 hours growing your business or working on how you're going to grow your business, it's way more productive than trying to figure out an HR contract or the award.
Yeah, and it's the same with the accounting.
Yeah,
we're working in this all the time. And, Google, as great as it is, it sends you down to a lot of rabbit holes. And it can certainly confuse you, and you can miss, and even ringing Fair Work to a certain extent, because people say I rang to Fair Work, but they will only provide you advice, and it's the same with the taxation department, I imagine, as well.
Yeah.
They will only provide you advice based on the information you give them. So sometimes you need to know what to ask and how to phrase it.
That's 100%. So if you're not asking the right question, you might ask it incorrectly, and you get the answer that you might like to get, but it's actually not the right answer because you didn't have the right question.
You didn't have
the
all
right
the information that you needed to get with it. So, look, I do think, and we spoke about it on our last webinar as well, it's a cost of doing business nowadays. Back in the good old days, my father, he would have, done everything. He would have done, the accounts and the marketing and everything, probably saw an accountant once a year and that was it. But that's just not the way that we do business nowadays. Nowadays, smart businesses, they stick to the core and they're productive, and they use, financial advisors and, business planners and professionals to be able to assist them to get better results.
So I think one of the things that I like to say is that, smart or good businesses will throw money at solving a problem. Businesses that aren't so smart will tend to focus time on trying to solve a problem. But sometimes that time is better spent doing what you do well. If it's concreting or whatever it might be, you'd rather be doing that as opposed to trying to figure out these things.
Couldn't agree more. So the other thing that we just wanted to talk about, and we've been harping on about this quite a bit in the last 12 months, and you've probably seen a bit of it as well, as the importance of keeping timesheets. So it isn't actually legislated that you have to have a timesheet per se, but you do need to keep records of how people work. And if you're not recording the start, finish times and break times, you run the risk that if an employee is keeping a personal diary and then they come back to you 12 months later and say, oh, by the way, I never got a break, or I always had to work an hour overtime or something, and you're like,
Yeah, that's it.
But you've got nothing to prove it,
Yeah.
and you'll lose at Fair Work every time. And we've seen this. We had one with a housekeeper recently, actually. Head housekeeper, been there a long time, good trust, on salary. Never thought there would have been an issue. Some things happened, situation changed, and she'd been there for about 4 years, and she suddenly said, I've worked from this hour to this hour and these are my records for it, and the employer had nothing to go against it. They just said, I'm like, well, they're like, well, why should we pay? And I'm like, because you can't prove otherwise.
And not only that, I mean, from a sort of knowing your numbers point of view, which is critical to your business, you should be doing it anyway, because you should. And particularly depending on the type of business, but particularly, let's say, for example, you're an auto mechanic or something like that. If you aren't monitoring their billing, you're going to get what we call leakage. And they'll then allocate 5 hours of time, but meantime, they spend 6 hours doing it. So you're not billing the client correctly. You're not recovering what you should be recovering in the business. And your labor as a percentage just goes way up and you lose money. So, you can't monitor what you don't measure. And so you got it from a point of view of just knowing what to do and how to manage your business. You should have it as well as obviously the legal side of it.
That's what you often do when you see clients in the first consult, isn't it? You crunch all those numbers, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. Because you got to. I mean, it's so critical to your business. The margins in business these days have got a lot tighter. And if you're not monitoring that the whole time, you could end up losing money. And even if you're not losing money, you're not making as much as you could be making. So why wouldn't you do it? And it's the same thing. It's just setting up the right systems and processes around it. That's all you've got to do, and make sure that those processes and systems are followed.
And when you do that exercise, do people usually have a good idea, or are they usually confronted with surprises?
Surprises.
Right.
Massively.
So even though they think they know the number, and they're like, just going through this exercise because you're bloody making them, because that's part of the process for the first meeting. And
well, that's exactly. I mean, it's also a case of if you ask a lot of business owners, you say, well, what is your labor percentage, or what is this percentage? And they say, they'll often say, I think it's this. And you say, you think, or it is. And if they don't know it, they're not measuring it. And if you're not measuring it, how can you run your business effectively or efficiently and make as much money as you should be making in the business? We always talk about the cost of doing business. Well, often there's this leakage that would more than cover the wages going up, et cetera, et cetera. So it's critically important to be on top of that. And, if you're not good at that, that's fine, but you can outsource that and you do what you're good at. And it's as simple as that.
No, really good advice. So, look, I think that is the end of all our slides. Oh no, we've got. Oh look, here we are. I think this was here somewhere. This got all the salaries in there, all the industries that they had the changes for the salarized industry. This was what came through last year. We're expecting it to go through for the others as well. So, be proactive and get that in place.
Salt Industry Award. That's quite an interesting one.
Do you know what? We would say we've worked with most industries, but I think I could say that I'm going to do the Salt Industry Award.
You just got to wonder who's the person in charge of setting it up and doing that.
The salt industry. There you go.
Somebody must be there.
Definitely.
Amazing.
Look, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and taking the time to listen to our webinar. We hope they're helpful. We try and give you as much up-to-date and informative information that's educational for you. Please feel free to spread these out. The more people know and understand, we're going to be building stronger and better businesses. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone or send an email, be it to Adrian or to myself. We're not going to charge you some exorbitant fee just because you've got a few questions to ask us. We're more than happy to answer your query as best we can and set you in the right direction. So
and don't be scared of it. At the end of the day, business is business, and there's a lot of ways that you can recuperate stuff, and if you're managing it properly, but you've got to be compliant. I mean, that's the bottom line. You know?
Absolutely, and even if you're not, you just need to make a plan as to how to get there. Just putting your head in the sand is not going to solve the issue whatsoever.
Ignorance of the law is no excuse, effectively.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome.
All right, look forward to hearing from you guys.
Nice to see you. Take care. Bye-bye.